Back for a try scorer. Sam, mate, Broncos or Roosters?
I think this will be close actually, but I'm going to tip the Roosters. I think the scoreline will be something like 20, 21 points to 14. And I'll actually go Sam Walker to slot a field goal.
It goes to Sam Walker. He strikes it. He likes it. And he's kicked it. Kicks it. Nails it.
Howdy everyone, it's Sam here. Hope you're all doing really well. If you're new around these parts, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you're a regular around these parts, thank you so much for the continuous support. You want to know how much money I won or how much money I put on that bet just then? Not a cent! Round 23 of the 2021 NRL season starts on Thursday from Cbus Super Stadium where the Titans host the Storm. AJ Brimson is out. Melbourne Storm are due back some cavalry. Melbourne Storm 13 plus. In my opinion, this Friday night is the biggest Friday night doubleheader of the season to date. It's a doubleheader from Suncorp Stadium and game number one sees the Canberra Raiders versus the Manly Sea Eagles. There is always something that happens between these two clubs whenever they come head to head. And last time they met, Raiders got the upset at Four Pines Park earlier this season, albeit that Manly were quite depleted. This Friday night, it's going to be a cracker, I think. This could end up being the game of the round. But leading up into it, this is what the team lists look like. Jared Croker is out through HIA protocols. Therefore, Sebastian Kris comes back in. The bench reads Chance Nickel-Klogstad, Emre Gula, Asia Soliola, and Matt Frawley. So welcome back to Chance Nickel-Klogstad for sure. Corey Harawira-Naera, his season potentially might be over due to that massive head-high collision that was suffered last Thursday night. And Joseph Tapine moves from the 11, 12, 13 position into the front row position. So I don't know, maybe that makes him a little bit less creative or less dangerous out there on the edges without Tapine. Tom Starling, he broke his jaw with minutes to play left in that clash against Melbourne Storm last week. So Josh Hodgson won't be that linking man. Tom Starling won't be coming in. No one else will to sort of free Hodgson up and sort of direct play. So he's going to well and truly earn every cent of his paycheck by the end of Friday night, Josh Hodgson, that's for sure. For Manly Sea Eagles news, Tafafoa Sipley, he's back in for the Manly Sea Eagles and that pushes out Kurt DeLewis. Brad Parker obviously was sent to space after that massive hit last week. Therefore, Moses Sully starts in at centre and partners Ruben Garrick out on the edges. And just Ruben Garrick, he's sort of flown in from the clouds over the past few years, and this season he becomes Manly's greatest point scorer in a single season. That's enormous, and maybe there might be a Blues jersey for him somewhere down the track if luck is on his side. Tom Trbojevic, he has been named. I don't know if he'll play or not still. If that were to be the case of where he didn't play, I reckon Garrick comes in and for fullback, and we'll see what the mad scientist does from there. But I can't wait to see this clash. I'm not expecting much from Chance Nickel-Klogstad. He'll be so he won't have the match fitness. And the errors that Canberra made last week, they could have beaten the Storm. They really could have, but simple errors, lazy errors, really cost him in the end. And I'm going to tip Manly Sea Eagles to win 1-12. And then the main event of Friday night footy is an absolute classic in waiting. It's Penrith Panthers versus the South Sydney Rabbitohs. This all-Sydney affair taking place at Suncorp Stadium. What a friggin' world we're living in at the moment, hey. Penrith Panthers team news. Api Coruscant and Kurt Capewell both returned from suspension. And Tavita Pengai Jr. and James Fisher-Harris have been named on the reserves list. I say get them out there, obviously, if all the protocols have been followed. And therefore, that would mean, in my opinion, Scott Sorensen and Jermaine Hopgood would then make way for Tavita Pangai Jr. and James Fisher-Harris. They look such a different side, obviously, with Nathan Cleary coming back into their side. They look more polished, and they looked like that they showed that they can go to another level when they do choose to turn it on. You probably should. You're fighting for a top 2 spot, aren't you? This Friday night against South Sydney, who they themselves welcome back a couple of bangers as well. Dane Gagai and Alex Johnson are back in the squad. And if I may, the back line for South Sydney this Friday night reads Latrell Mitchell, Alex Johnson, Dane Gagai, Campbell Graham, Josh Mansour, and Walker and Reynolds. That's a scarily good back line, but I think Penrith Panthers' defense is going to be what keeps them in the game. I just think they're about ready to just remind everyone that their winning streak last year was no fluke. I'm going to tip Penrith Panthers to win 1-12. Super Saturday features a trilogy of contests, and game number 1 has turned out to be a mini final in the month of August. It's taking place at Brown Park in Rockhampton, Queensland. West Tigers versus the Cronulla Sharks. Safe to say that these two clubs are fighting on Brown Park for the first time in their history this weekend. So for the West Tigers, James Taumau finds himself back into the front row, starting at front row. Tanis Makele and Jacob Little, both those players are missing out. And coming in for them, Jack Simpkin is starting at hooker this weekend, and Alex Tawal finds himself out on the lock position as well. And interestingly enough, James Roberts finds himself on the bench with jersey number 17 on his back. First and foremost for Cronulla Sharks team news, Andrew Fafita, mate, all the best. You'll get out of it. Just all the best to you, mate. What a shocking bloody injury. So for the Cronulla Sharks as well, Aidan Tolman, I believe he's been suspended for a cannonball tackle. I think he's out for a game, maybe even 2. I need to double check that. So because they're down 2 props, Cronulla Sharks, Talakai, who I thought had a decent game out there in the centres, he reverts back to the second row. And Hiroti is the new starting centre for the Cronulla Sharks. Yeah, it's a mini final in the month of August. What a weird game this is going to be. And there's a lot riding on it too, obviously. The loser of this clash, I think, can kiss finals goodbye for season 2021. I'm going to tip the Cronulla Sharks. And Matt Moylan still finds himself as 18th man. So, fingers crossed for the Sharkies that he does have his glass of milk this weekend and get out there onto the paddock. And Will Chambers has also been named in jersey 19 as well. But I'm going to tip the Cronulla Sharks. And Game 2 of Super Saturday is the first of a double-header from Cbus Super Stadium. Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs host the Newcastle Knights. For the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, there's a handful of changes. The big one for them, Luke Thompson, who got suspended a few weeks ago, poorly so in my opinion as well. He comes back. He's going to be so big for the Canterbury Bulldogs. Also, Jeremy Marshall-King, he is out, and therefore that brings in Jackson Topine. Kyle Flanagan finds himself back into the squad in at jersey number 7. He partners Jake Avarillo, who's been selected at 5'8", although Jake Avarillo broke his hand over the weekend. So Kyle Flanagan, mate, you need to step up big time, don't you? And the Canberra Raiders boys, Ryan James and Corey Horsburgh, keep their spots in the team. So for Newcastle Knights, there are 2 massive outs in my opinion. Daniel Saifidi did his MCL, and he's going to miss the rest of the regular season. And by luck, he will appear in the first week of the finals. That's if Newcastle do indeed make the top 8 come September. And Tyson Brazell has been suspended for 1 game. So what that does is bring in a gentleman named Gerard Momoisi, and Chris Randall are the 2 new faces on the Newcastle bench as well. Therefore, that promotes Brodie Jones into a starting second row jersey, and he's been a really unsung hero. He's been an unsung hero for me for the Newcastle Knights this season. So Newcastle Knights weren't overly convincing in their win against the Cronulla Sharks. It was a close game, but it wasn't a classic game by any means, but certainly no the less important. Newcastle Knights should keep the ball rolling, and they should beat the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs by 13 plus. And the main event of Super Saturday, who knows what the hell's going to happen in this game? From Cbus Super Stadium, Game 2 of the doubleheader, it's the Parramatta Eels versus the North Queensland Cowboys. Let me say this, sometimes loyalty will kick you in the backside, because last week I was that close to getting a perfect 8 from 8 round. And who was the team that let me down? There's not really a whole lot of team news this weekend, thankfully, for the North Queensland Cowboys. But Murray Tuolangi and Lachlan Burr, who are or should be ready to be selected, have not been selected. And Ruben Cotter finds himself on the bench in jersey number 14. There are 2 players in doubt, though. Kyle Felt and Cohen Hess. One has a jaw problem and the other one has a HIA problem as well. So they'll be monitored throughout the week. For the Parramatta Eels, Ryan Madison, who knocked the hell out of Brad Parker, his regular season is now done. Replacing him is Marata Niakuri, and the young 28-year-old debutant keeps his spot in jersey number 17 for the Parramatta Eels, Makatoa. And the big news, in my opinion, for Parramatta this week is the dropping of Tom Opicic and Michael Oldfield. Michael Oldfield has been replaced with Hayes Dunster, which I think is a great selection. And for Tom Opicic, in comes Will Penasini, who I thought was very impressive on his debut a few weeks ago. Look, heart, mind, it's always going to be with North Queensland. I'm tipping the Cowboys 1-12. Hopefully they can... Yeah, I don't know. Go Cowboys. And Sunday afternoon footy starts from Clive Berghofer Stadium in Toowoomba, Queensland. St George Illawarra Dragons versus the Sydney Roosters. Boy howdy, there's some history between these 2 clubs. And if you just allow me, when you combine the matches that have been played between the Roosters, St George Illawarra and Illawarra, it's something like over 250 first grade games that have been played between these 2 clubs. So there's a lot of history between them too. So for team lists news, so we'll start with the home team, the Dragons. McCulloch, his season is over. Blake Lowry, his season may be over. He's got to go see a hand specialist because he did break his hand against Penrith. And Gerard Beale has been dropped. And taking place of Gerard Beale is Jack Bird. Now that leaves open a fullback position. Matt Duffy, he returns after maybe a month out. And Tarek Sims also returns from a suspension for the Sydney Roosters after having a week off. One of the best props in the game at the moment. Jared Warrior-Hargreaves finds himself back in jersey number 8 because Victor Radley lost the plot. His regular season is now finished as well. He won't participate until finals footy comes about. So therefore Isaac Liu comes back down into the lock, and there's a gentleman in jersey number 17 by the name of Ben Thomas. So in my opinion, the Roosters, they're losing forwards now. They've lost a lot of their back line except for their key figure in Tedesco and Manu, of course. Now they're starting to lose forwards through suspension or injury. And now with Warrior-Hargreaves back, let's not put too much more weight on that bloke's shoulders. I think Takeaho, Tupanua, and Isaac Liu are the 3 forwards that need to form a triangle of trust or a trinity. They need to help out Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. And before Andrew McCulloch's injury, I was very close. McCulloch's out. That puts Josh McGuire in at dummy half. There's not going to be too much creativity coming from the Dragons again, even though the one and only match that took place at Toowoomba was a couple of years ago, and that's where the Dragons absolutely belted the Gold Coast Titans, something like 40 points to 8 or something like that. But the Sydney Roosters should have too much class, too much spirit, and they'll win this game 1-12. And round 23 finishes from Suncorp Stadium with the Brisbane Broncos host the Warriors. Warriors haven't faced the Broncos at Suncorp Stadium since 2019. The last time they played each other at this venue, it ended up as a draw. It's Dallin Watine Zelezniak's 150th game as well. I think we can expect something similar. I have no idea who to tip. So for the first time this year, I'm going to flip a coin. So heads, Warriors. Heads, Warriors. Heads, Warriors. Okay. Okay, I didn't catch it. It says heads. It says heads. Come on, Warriors. Care about me, multi. Ladies and gents, that's it for me this week. Thank you so much for the continuous support. And if you're new around here, I hope I've convinced you to like the content and subscribe to the channel as well. You can expect to see me on the Rugby League Breakdown podcast, exclusive to Nick from Australia's YouTube channel. That's tomorrow night from 6 o'clock. Until then, I hope you all have a very nice and safe weekend. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow night. If not, I'll talk to you guys next Tuesday. Take care. Go Cowboys.